I'm Zainab. I'm an LP and investor in residence at Visionaries Club, and today I'll be introducing you to some of our most exciting fintech portfolio companies. Our next guests are Andreas and Ed, the co-founders of Tillit, a buy now pay later solution for B2B merchants. Ed, Andreas, welcome. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you so much for letting us speak today. The story of Tillit started back in 2015, which at that point of time, I was a founder and CEO of a company called Linio.com. Linio is a B2C marketplace, quite similar to what Amazon or eBay is, but for the Spanish-speaking LATAM, and it's a number 2 product marketplace in the region. We focus all our efforts, time, money, and marketing towards the consumer segment, but actually 20% of our customers were business customers. And these customers didn't purchase and have the same type of customer journey as what we saw in the consumer segment. Basically, they would be shopping online, going to our website and finding the products they wanted to do. When they wanted to check out, they would pause, call customer service and ask, how do I check out? How do I complete this purchase? This basically unraveled a lot of back-end processes on our end, where we needed to ask for a lot of manual documents and back and forth between us and the buyer, which typically led to the customer ending up not buying with us because we didn't feel comfortable taking on the credit risk of letting them buy on invoice, or because it took us so long to complete the process that the customer went somewhere else. They probably stayed in the physical world. We also had a lot of credit issues on the businesses that we allowed to buy on invoice because we weren't credit experts. We were doing retail, e-commerce, and marketplace. We weren't a bank or a financier. Nevertheless, we were obliged or forced to get into the business of extending credit to be in the B2B market. It just simply didn't work for us to tap into B2B. And that's basically where the story of Tillit started, because we see that there's a bundling of retail, or what's your core activity or services, and financial activities required to succeed in B2B, which gets exacerbated online when the customer wants to check out, and they want to check out easy and quick. That effectively just holds B2B back and cannot really move completely into the e-commerce in the 21st century. And that's basically what we at Tillit do. We are the 2 in B2B, which basically will enable any 2 businesses anywhere in the world to transact and do business with each other, just simply because one company wants to buy a product or a service of another company that's just great at providing that product.
So the scope of the opportunity really is enormous. If we step back and look at this from a macro perspective, we see that B2B commerce globally dwarfs B2C. It's something like 3 times the size. But if you move online, that gap narrows significantly. B2B commerce is significantly underpenetrated online. And the question that we asked is why? It rapidly became clear that the key answer to this is that there's simply a lack of payment options. Right now, there are essentially 3 options that are presented to a business buyer when they want to purchase online. And that's cash, credit card, or shut your laptop and go to the high street and buy it in person. And given that actually, in fact, here in Europe, many businesses don't even have a credit card. And if they do, they typically don't like to use it for these kinds of purchases. You really only have cash as an option, and that's just not sufficient for most of our buyers' purposes. So I'll let Andreas show you how it is that we do this.
We'd like to run you through how simple it should be for a business to purchase online and also get access to credit terms. We're now here at the Tillit demo store, where we'll take you through a typical e-commerce purchase journey for businesses. So we start out by finding something that we want to buy. In this case, we built up a very typical e-commerce purchase store, but this could also have been a closed-end supplier portal or any other type or reservation or booking system where the buyer or the purchaser has the opportunity to place an order or reservation directly. We want to contribute to something green, so we are offering plans for offices. We'll go straight in and purchase a couple of products and put into the shopping cart, and then move on to the checkout. The Tillit solution is an API. We also come with plugins to all the major reservation, booking, and e-commerce platforms. And basically, that is connected to the point of checkout, which we will now move on to. At the checkout, this is where Tillit gets to work. In this case, since it's an e-commerce store, we enable for the e-commerce store to differentiate between personal and business customers. As a business customer, you start typing in your name, phone number, and email, which you already have at this in this specific case. You also type in which country your business is residing in, and you start typing in the company name that you want to purchase on behalf of. And at this point, we start to get to work. We are connected up against government databases, KYB, and due diligence platforms, and we can now instantly, in less than 500 milliseconds, both complete the KYB and also the credit approval for this business customer. In this case, this company, Monosuke, got approved, which is indicated by the payment method Tillit being enabled. You can now click buy, and you get into the last step of the purchase process, which is an authentication step. We have a tiered system that enables us for a very quick identification of just you as a person for small orders. In this case, we do that with verifying the name on the phone line, and up to strong authentication methods using open banking and matching them with government databases of who are legal representatives of a certain business. By doing that, we enable for extremely fast purchase experience for small baskets, and also allows us to accept online instant credit purchases for SMB businesses up to several €100,000 at a time. We click submit, and purchase is done. So welcome to the new way for B2B purchasing to take place, and also a major tool for enabling SMB businesses to have access to faster and easier credit lines.
Now we are on to our next session. TrueLayer is on a mission to open up finance. They have built one of the leading open banking networks in Europe. And today I have the CEO founder of TrueLayer with me. Thank you very much for joining us, Bra.
Thank you, Zeynep. Thanks very much for inviting me.
So I want to go to the very beginning. It's 2016, you're in San Francisco. How did it all start?
So myself and Luca, we moved to San Francisco maybe in 2014, something like that. No, earlier than that, 2012, sorry. And so we were out of a startup experience of like building a startup and selling that. And we then like went on working at this company that acquired us. So then our path like splitted for basically a couple of years, where I started to focus on investments and doing like seed rounds out of my own money first, and then later on through a fund. And then Luca was a very early like engineer at Plaid, which is a company that of course like is in our space. And so when in 2015, but really like 2016, like I was looking at financial technology, and my theory of the world is that many different consumer applications would actually try to build for this new digital world, the very same way I think it happened for many other verticals in the past. And a few players would emerge, providing infrastructure. So a little bit like the Twilio moment for fintech, where there are companies building pure infrastructure through APIs that would enable an entire world of financial application living on top of them. So I was really researching in this field to make investments when I stumbled upon this concept of open banking in UK, and it was 2016, so the regulation was just about to be put in place. And so started to triangulate with a few friends and people working at banks and CEO of banks, and also of course Luca, that was looking at I would say very similar aspect of things, just coming from a very, very different landscape, which was the US. And so we got passionate about this idea. At the end of the day, I used to be a developer, and I really love everything that works over APIs. And that was like fantastic opportunity to build APIs for financial technology, which was conceptually very, very big. And so we then realized that London was the place to be for building something that was European first, so to speak, in a time where UK was still in Europe. And so then we moved to London and set up the company, and then the rest is TrueLayer that you see today.
So that's kind of interesting, because in the US and Europe, as you said, it's quite different. In the US, it was kind of driven by the companies itself. In Europe, it was quite regulation driven. So lots of people think that regulation, and at the speed at which banks implement these protocols, is the biggest challenge to open banking businesses. Would you agree that's the case for your business and open banking businesses in general?
Yeah, I would agree with the statement that the biggest challenge in building a financial network where banks are the fundamental nodes is that you have to deal with banks one way or another. So now, if the driver is regulation, or the driver is that somehow like you manage to hack into their infrastructure and do either screen scraping or break their mobile apps and do reverse engineering, like those are big challenges like you have to pass. Like one is barely legal, I would say, and clearly doesn't provide a great user experience to consumer, because you are basically impersonating, like you're abusing of an interface that has been built for something else, and you try to purpose for being like open to developers. On the other side, you have regulators that are putting in place a lot of law, and then all those banks independently try to comply with those laws, and the result can vary. So you may have like great implementation like in the UK, or really bad implementation like a few banks in Italy. And so it's very hard to really say which approach is better. I prefer when there is a clear partnership, there is a clear regulatory framework, there is a clear allocation of liability, and this is where really regulation comes in place. I think the fundamental bit that really nobody cracked yet, completely at least, is why the bank should build APIs in the first place. What is in there for them? So I think like a big focus for TrueLayer coming in this year and the next few years is going to be how do we align incentives with the banks so that we can get the best of the two worlds. So a nice streamlined access, as well as collaboration and feeling like we are in a productive partnership with the banks, and not somehow either abusing or riding over a regulation that doesn't give too much back to the banks.
Yeah, I guess what's in it for the banks is that if they want to work with any innovative technology providers or any third-party providers going forward, they're going to have to use open banking. They're going to have to open up their APIs. So that's probably one argument.
It's totally true. The problem is that it's a little bit far-fetched when you decline into the mentality of whoever is running a specific maybe org or business line, and then you need to start thinking in terms of what is maybe revenues that you can accrue for them, or why is better. Like, can you measure that sort of impact? We're getting there, and we would be one of the very first company in this space to announce commercial partnership with banks in an open banking framework. So I'm very excited for that. I think it's going to be an entirely new chapter of what open banking means in Europe. Yeah,
I mean, overall, this space started emerging while you started in it. So it's inevitable that you face all these challenges. What's interesting is that you've known Luca for a very long time, and you've been working with him also for several years. How has it changed over time, both your kind of personal relationship as well as your responsibilities at the job?
Yeah. I mean, so myself and Luca, we knew each other since the high school. So we were 14 years old, right? So it's a very, very long franchise. And we built This is my third company with him, and a very long list of like other adventure and sidetracks and whatsoever. So we start from a foundation of like longtime friends, which for a very long time we have done things that teenagers would do without like thinking about business or at all. Just like we got brought together by a passion of like software programming. It was the early days of open source, of Linux, of all this cool stuff. So that was kind of the background. And then I would say there is a first part of our life, which is somehow overlapping with our very first two companies, where it was really work and fun was almost like the same thing in a way. Like we were really a little bit like maybe a college culture where you live and work and party with the same people and you do like everything together, right? Clearly, like when we approach like maybe the late 20s, early 30s, and that of course, like it was also like the beginning of TrueLayer. Things changed personally, just because I mean, like we got married, like we went on living, like we got old. Like you can't party hard at night and then like work hard during the day. Like I just can't do that anymore. Just my body can't do that. So
it's good that you gave up the partying rather than the work side of things.
Yeah, of course. Well, I mean, like we found other ways to, of course, like keep having fun. But just saying that sort of like college culture in a way like faded away very naturally, man, for good reason. And I'm not saying that sound like the good old days. I think like I'm very excited like of the new days. But clearly that changed in a more like us become adult and taking on also responsibilities with I think like a slightly different mindset. And clearly when we started TrueLayer, I think like we were already in that sort of mindset of this is gonna be really venture scalable. This is gonna be big. Like we want to do it not just to do a company. We want to do a company with certain aspirations. And so I think we were way more cognizant and directed into how do we design an organization. Of course, like there's a lot of learning, and as you said, like we split it in two ways. Like he's the CTO and I'm the CEO. I think like I delegated to him everything that is like the technical direction of the company, while he delegated to me everything that is business, sales, fundraising, and the likes. We overlap in a way, like that's where like really like the strong partnership comes together when everything product. And so I think like the good thing about being longtime friends is that at some point in every startup story, there's something that you will find yourself like looking at things like the very same thing and coming to different conclusions. And that's where I believe being friend like helps you to compromise a little bit, like put yourself in the shoes of the other and try to see, okay, what is the greater good that we need to go after. And I think that relationship helps you to evolve. And so that's where we are. Clearly, I think in generally speaking, like startups are very hard. And I believe that one of the challenges, it's a little bit like when you do maybe a company with your wife or husband, like your personal life is very much entangled with your also professional life. And so that is sometimes a challenge. Like it's very hard to do like a dinner without like ending up talking about TrueLayer, for good and bad, right? Mm-hmm. Like there are times where like I want to just talk about stuff that doesn't have to do with TrueLayer. I mean, yeah. Then that comes as a challenge, and that's fine.
Yeah, it sounds like I had no idea that you guys knew each other since high school.
Yeah.
I mean, that's incredible, and that you were able to protect that relationship and the friendship until now. And if you look at it today, now you have a business with over 200 people in 5 different cities. If you were to look back at the journey, what is one thing you wish that you knew at the start of it?
I would say probably a better insight into operational model. I would say it's that thing that I think at the very beginning doesn't really matter too much, because like you are the one that thinks about doing things and also like executing that. There is a time in between when you are maybe approaching 100 people where you still think in the old model, but the reality is that this ship is getting bigger and bigger and harder to steer if you don't have a good operational model.
Got it. So let's do a rapid fire of questions. And this is going to be kind of relevant. So I just want you to say the first thing that comes into your mind as I ask my questions. And let's start maybe with the party, Luca and Fra. Do you guys have a favorite song?
Favorite song? Yeah, I would say everything Daft Punk related.
Okay, what is your favorite business book?
Business book, Principles by Ray Dalio.
Okay. San Francisco, London, Milan. You've lived in all of them. What is your favorite?
I pick Rome just because I grew up here, and that's the right answer.
What is one quality you look for in the people you hire?
I think like I want them to put their weakness in plain sight. So that's the thing. And
what is culture at TrueLayer in one word?
I would say open. Like we want to open finance, we need to be open within ourselves.
Perfect. Thank you very much, Fra. This was great.
Very good. Thanks very much. I hope that you enjoyed and it was interesting.